I can finally say that I have read a Sally Rooney book. Easy to understand, easy to read. Thinks no. She's gonna give it to him straight. She'll call him out on his bullshit. Okay, I'm back. Hi, welcome to my channel, Crafty Reads. My name is Safa, and if you're new, my name is, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. It's been a hot minute. As you've probably realized, it's been a couple weeks since I've actually posted something. You know, exam season's very rough these days, but I have been on a break, and so this is the time to record something that I read a while back, and it's very interesting because I have read something completely out of my comfort zone. As you've seen, my channel is predominantly fantasy books, but today, switching it up, I'm going to be reading a contemporary fiction novel. I can't speak. This is what like weeks apart from recording something has done to me. I can't speak in front of a camera now. But whatever. So I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review on Normal People by Sally Rooney, as you have guessed by the title and the thumbnail. But why have I chose to read this? Honestly, your guess is probably as good as mine. I just was on a whim and I was like, you know what? All these people are recommending it, and Sally Rooney has literally been, I swear, the hot author of like the year everyone's been talking about, especially like the really popular booktubers like Joel from Fictional Fates and Uncarly and Jack Ben Edwards, like all those people. They've been like raving about Sally Rooney. So I was like, you know what? I need a change of pace and scenery from fantasy, and I was thinking, you know, contemporary fiction, it sounds like a right thing for the time being. Because I've been on Dune for like God knows how long. Honestly, I'm only in the first 150 pages and it's been a month. So I'm taking a break. So I finished this. And so I'm just going to go through spoiler-free things, general thoughts about it, good and bad, and just like things I think you should know about if you are going to think about reading this. So my overall rating for this book is 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now keep in mind, I'm not a seasoned contemporary reader, I'm a fantasy reader, but it'll be an interesting take because I think I'll offer some fresh perspectives, hopefully. It follows the perspectives of two characters, Marianne and Connell. Now Marianne and Connell go to the same high school, and it kind of follows their journey as they transition from high school to college. And it just follows from how they go by their day-to-day practices kind of thing. And so the whole point of the story, it doesn't really have an end goal. And I think that's one of the things I didn't really enjoy about it. I'm just going to start talking about things I didn't enjoy and end with things I did enjoy. So the things I didn't like, I'm going to start with trigger warnings. This book does contain like things and themes about sexual abuse, physical assault, abusiveness, mentions of suicide. It's very intense at times. And I think because I'm not used to reading something with such strong themes in it and very intense conversations and all that, it was a little disturbing at times and uncomfortable for me to read because I'm just not used to it. And it's not really a type of, I guess, book or like thing I'm looking for when I'm reading something, because I do it for escapism. I want to get away from reality and the stresses of the world, not jump back into it. I think that's why I didn't really enjoy it that much. But then again, there's other things. There wasn't really a lot of things I didn't like about it. I think it's just like I couldn't find anything in particular I didn't like. It didn't resonate with me. I didn't enjoy it as much as I think I should have. And I think another reason for that is because I went into this thinking it was like some contemporary romance book, because they prefaced that, you know, Marianne and Connell were going to get into this relationship in high school and it kind of fell apart in college kind of thing. But you know what? But when going into it, like none of that really happened. I had such a expectation that it was going to be a romance that I was very disappointed that I didn't get that satisfaction, and that kind of hindered my scoring at the end, which makes sense. Like obviously I didn't look into it too much other than the fact that I read the synopsis, heard just general reviews about it. Don't go into this book looking for a romance. It is not about that. It is very much about the journeys that these people go through and the real life kind of expectations and pressures that are put on them at that young age and what they kind of go through day to day. I think that kind of sums up my bad things about it. Like I said, I just can't find anything remotely bad about it. But that being said, I didn't find many things that I like, wow, that was amazing. Like it wasn't like that either. It was just in the middle. Like, I was happy that I actually picked up a Sally Rooney book just to say I read a Sally Rooney book. You know what I mean? Okay, now I'm gonna start the good reviews portion. So, I think that Sally Rooney is a great author. She writes very clear, concise, and the way she constructs the stories is very unique and interesting too. Like, I haven't really read an author that writes like this. So the way she writes is she starts a chapter with, let's say, Marianne's perspective. And what happens is that it tells a story of like the present time, but at some point within the same chapter, she breaks it up and it kind of reverts back to a past event that occurred, and she tells it within that chapter. And then once that section ends from her past story, then it kind of leads and flows into the point back to the present. It's hard to explain unless I actually, tell you the details, but I don't want to spoil it because it is a spoiler-free video. But it's very unique that she kind of connects like the past events and continues on with the present like that. It's just very unique that way. And she does that pretty much with like most of the chapters, which is nice. And what's also unique about her way of constructing the story is that she kind of follows each chapter within like a few weeks of time. So let's say you read one chapter, it ends, then the next chapter it says, 6 weeks later, 3 months later, that kind of thing. So it kind of speeds up the timeline a bit. And that being said, it is a very fast-paced novel in general. And that's what I did enjoy. The story isn't that long. It's less than 300 pages, so you could definitely finish it within a day or two. It took me 2 or 3 days, I think. But I honestly could have finished it in one if I really tried. Also, what I really think was the best thing about this book is the magical realism. Magical realism. See, this is the problem when you read too many fantasy books. Like, you just have, okay. The realistic nature of this book really stood out. And what I'm talking about is that, like I said, this book follows that transition from high school to college and following through college between Marianne and Connell. And because of that, you see pretty much like very realistic things that goes on in their life. Things like peer pressure, anxiety, personal insecurities. Did I say peer pressure? I think I said peer pressure. There's something else I'm missing. I think that's, imposter syndrome. Like, am I feeling good enough? Am I right? Did I make the right choice? Like, those types of feelings that you go through when you experience college and like university settings, it's just very relatable. And that's something I really did like about that. I think that's why I bumped it up to 3.5 out of 5 stars and not 3, because of how realistic it is. And the way she writes the story, it isn't a lot of jargon and like excessive metaphors and fancy language. It's very clear, easy to understand, easy to read. That's why I think I really liked reading this book. Specifically just because her writing style was really nice. Okay, and some themes that were really interesting that she displayed within the book were 2 predominant ones that I personally came across, but other people probably found more, is one being the emphasis on a power shift. And like power, like who holds the power in a situation. And what I mean by that isn't like who's the strongest. It kind of means like who holds attention, who kind of commands the situation in a sense. So I'm not going to necessarily spoil it, but I think the way they kind of flip-flop between Marianne and Connell, who held the more significant, power within the relationship, really stood out as something very interesting. Because it wasn't necessarily one person had it the entire time. It was always back and forth between the two. Because this isn't really a spoiler, you read this in the very beginning. Marianne starts out like this outcast kind of character in high school because no one really likes her. They have this preconceived notion of her that she's like this very weird and like, no one just really likes her because of how they portray her or like how she's perceived based on like something that she has done. But she's also a very sensitive person. That's something they don't really see. But after high school, things kind of change where she kind of grows out of that very shy, sensitive person and grows into this much more stronger individual who has a much more, I would say, secure personality. Someone who's more confident in who they are to some extent. Like, she does have other issues, like I said, other themes that were present. But just sticking to that, you definitely see a shift in like their character development, which is very, very interesting. Connell, the same thing. He started out, like in contrast to Marianne, being the very popular guy. Everyone likes him in high school. He's such a like well-liked person in general. And so obviously in the beginning, he had the power in his hands. He was commanding the attention. Marianne was not. And then eventually we see it flipped where Marianne has it and he does not. And you kind of see like their emotional journeys and what they kind of undergo experiencing all these things, coupled with the fact of the stress and pressure of college and paying for tuition and like all these other things. And that's what I mean by like it being very realistic. Sally Rooney does a good job of kind of portraying those very realistic emotions that, you know, something like that I feel onto these characters. Okay, another thing that I like about this is Lorraine. I can't go about this book and not talk about Lorraine. Lorraine is Connell's mother, and Lorraine technically at the beginning worked for Marianne's family as like a house cleaner, I think. Marianne's family, if you didn't know, they are pretty well off. Connell's like middle class, I would say, but you know, she helps out to clean their stuff. And so she's gotten to know Marianne like very generally, that she's shy and sensitive and these kinds of things. That being said, Lorraine's also that very, you know, interesting mom. Like she kind of does remind me of mine too, because she's not that sweet, innocent, like, oh, it's okay, you know, Connell, do your best, you know, all these other things. No. She's gonna give it to him straight. She'll call him out on his bullshit so much. It's funny. Like, and it's good because like you want someone who's very real and honest with their child to kind of, you know, tell them how it is. Like you don't want to sugarcoat things. But she also does stand up for what she believes in. And she said that she never really regrets her decisions, and that'll make more sense if you actually read it, but yes. Oh, another theme present in this book is the idea of a social class. So like I said, Marianne's more well-off than Connell. He is middle class, and that kind of creates some kind of tension between them later on throughout the book, because there's always this idea to Connell that Marianne doesn't work as hard because she has the money to kind of support herself already. Like she doesn't have to work to pay for her tuition, for her meals, her housing, or anything. While Connell, he has to do it on his own because it's just him and his mom, right? His mom already, you know, is kind of struggling to pay for things. So he has to pay for his car, his housing, his food, you know, tuition, all that. And he kind of gets pulled away from him and Marianne and their relationship because of sometimes that whole idea of the social class issue. And yeah, there's just issues revolving around that too, which is really interesting. Okay, so that kind of concludes my spoiler-free review of Normal People. Do I recommend this book to others? I would say, sure. I don't know how to recommend this. I'm not against recommending it, but I think just be careful about those trigger warnings I did mention. If those do affect you in your reading, then definitely stay away from it. But yeah, that's things. I would just look out for that. But Sally Rooney, the way she writes is really easy to follow. It's very fast-paced. It'll go by really quickly. And I think the events that go on in this book is pretty eye-catching at times. It can be a little bit, you know, annoying to follow along at times just because you're not looking forward to a specific end goal. You're just kind of following day by day. But I think it's interesting because it's something I'm not really used to, but maybe you would like that too. So I can finally say that I have read a Sally Rooney book. Your fantasy girl has did it. She has read a Sally Rooney book. So check that off my bucket list. It's done. And yeah, that kind of concludes my video. So stay tuned for Friday's vlog or video or whatever the heck I post. See ya. Bye.